Hello and welcome to Control-Delete Tutorials. My name is Jason and we are doing another continuation of the C# basics. This will be part 3. Part 1 we covered variables and methods. Part 2 we covered if statements and logic operators. So if you haven't seen those, might be a good idea to check those out. But let's get to the next part. So what I want to do is I want to cover, we're going to start with writing a new script, and I'm going to show how we can have our different methods kind of communicate with one another. It's pretty easy to do, so this should be a pretty quick tutorial. So I'm just going to take the script tester here, and I'm going to remove this component, this script that we wrote, which was from the first 2 videos, just so we can start fresh on one. So I'm going to go to the scripts folder, right-click, create C# script, and I'm going to call this add program. And we're still using that Pascal case naming convention, which is uppercase for each letter. And always the first thing that we check when we create a new script is make sure that the class name matches the file name. Okay, so you can see there, public class add program. And we'll double click that to open up Visual Studio. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to I'll get rid of our comments now. We should be past the point of really needing these comments. So I've got my start method, which again always runs at start. And then I've got update. Now, in this case, I'm not going to use update. I'm going to create a new method. And instead of this being a void type, now void means it has no return type. So that means that it doesn't return any information back to where it's called from. I'm going to use a int type, and we're just going to call this program add. It's going to take in 2 arguments, 2 parameters, whatever you want to call it. So our first one is going to be of the int data type, and we'll just call it x. And we'll separate the second one with a comma. This will be int y. Now we would get an error here without returning. So what we're going to do is we're going to take those incoming inputs for those arguments or parameters, and we're going to return x plus y. And then what we're going to do in Unity is we're going to take 2 public ints and pass them through there. So we'll do a public int, and we'll call this, let's just call it number 1. Now remember, we can have a 1 in the naming of our variables as long as it is after the first character. We can never put a number first. So we'll have number 1, and we're not going to set a default here. We'll set that in the inspector. Public int number 2. Okay. And what we're going to do is create a local variable here. So we'll just call this int sum. And we'll set it to equal add. And we're going to call on this function down here. Now we have our 2 inputs here. So our first one is x, so that'll be number 1. And our second one is going to be number 2. Okay, so that's going to take whatever value we put in here and store it as x. Take whatever value we put here, store it as y. It'll take x plus y and return it back to the sum. And then we'll just simply print out the sum. And instead of just printing out the sum, what we'll do is I'll do number 1 plus, and we'll have it display a plus sign. We'll put number 2. So it's going to actually just show us our equation and then the sum. And we'll add to that our equal sign. You don't have to have these spaces here. You could have the numbers all next to each other. I like to put spaces just for readability. That's just my own personal thing. And we'll add to that this sum. So basically what we should see is whatever number we put in here, plus sign, whatever the next number is, equals the sum based on what happens up here. This is a really short program, but the idea is to get you used to knowing that you can create methods that have different data types or different values, and it returns that information. So you could write a more complicated method that takes in different information and returns it. And instead of always having to write the script over and over and over again, you just simply call the function, plug it in. It does the calculation for you and returns the value back to where it's called from. That's all this is trying to show. So we'll save this, go back into Unity, wait for our compiler. We'll go up to our script tester. Now I removed previously the first script that we did in the first two tutorials, so we're just going to do the add program. And we'll see we have number 1 and number 2. Currently they're both 0. And if we open up the console, so if we put in some calculation, 798 plus 654, and we hit play, we're going to get a printout. 789 plus 654 equals 1,443. Now we're using int variables, so this would only work as long as the numbers don't go above roughly 2 to the 31st power, which is near 2.1 billion. So we'd be able to add anything that doesn't go over 2.1 billion since we're using the int variable, because that's all the information it can hold. Anything over that, and we're going to get an issue. So we shouldn't really need to worry about that, but the main idea is that we're learning how to call a function, put information in, have it do the calculations, and return that value. And that's really all there is to this tutorial. So we made a simple calculator, and it always works, and it's nice because it always shows us the numbers in the equation. And again, if you like the way this looks better, you can always take these out, resave it, wait for it to compile, and when we hit play, now we get the same thing, but now we don't have the extra spaces in there. I myself like the extra spaces. So hopefully you liked this video. If you did, give me a thumbs up or a like or whatever we're calling it, and keep checking back for more videos. Please subscribe, and thanks for watching.